everyone, and welcome back to All About Steph 1 with me, Steph, and today I want to explore the concept and the idea of loyalty in Formula 1 and how it's implemented between teams, drivers, and fans. So we actually hear the word loyalty thrown around all the time in Formula 1 in all different contexts. Is loyalty a bad thing, a good thing? Is it a one-way street, or do you have to have two willing participants? So what's the verdict? Should loyalty be as important in Formula 1 as it is, or do we need to let go of this concept? So I'm going to use a few examples to make my point, and the first example that I'm going to use is Haas. And this is because Haas bang on about loyalty in Drive to Survive. Every time Gunther talks about his driver lineups, he always puts a massive emphasis on loyalty and how it's one of the founding principles of the Haas F1 team. Haas, as we know, is fairly new and they only entered Formula 1 in 2016. Since then, they have had one driver with them for all of its seasons, that is Romain Grosjean, and then for 4 out of its 5 seasons, they have had Kevin Magnussen. For 2021, Haas is going to have a brand new lineup in Nikita Mazepin and Mick Schumacher, and so it's kind of got rid of this loyalty that it's had for Romain Grosjean and Kevin Magnussen. But this partnership between K-Mag, Rogro, and the Haas F1 team, it worked for a long time, and it was because all of the parties were loyal to each other. In comparison to a team such as Renault, who I'm going to talk about in a little bit, Haas have had that consistency of having two experienced and capable drivers driving in their team for 4 or 5 years now. Unfortunately, there were some negatives that came with this partnership. You know, Haas really stagnated in the last couple of years and probably should have got rid of the drivers much earlier than it did. However, they were bound by this concept of loyalty, and so therefore they kept the drivers on for a much longer period of time than they probably should have. And in terms of the drivers, because they were secure with Haas, they didn't really create any links with any other teams. They didn't look to go elsewhere, and so then when Haas decided to cancel their contracts, they had nowhere else to go in Formula 1 and they ended up off of the grid, which is a real shame, especially for Kevin Magnussen, because he didn't really get the chance to show exactly what he was capable of. So as we can see, there are clearly positives and negatives in terms of loyalty in Formula 1, and there will always be these pros and cons, but it's weighing up whether the pros outweigh the cons. Now, another example that is completely different, I want to talk about Racing Point and their treatment of Sergio Perez. Checo has been driving for the Force India Racing Point team since 2014, and he also helped the team through when they went into administration in 2018. In 2019, it was announced that he had signed a contract for 2020, 2021, and 2022, so a 3-year deal with this team, which now we know got voided. When both parties signed that multi-year contract, it was definitely a sign of support and faithfulness that the both of them had in each other. And yet, in 2020, they decided to cancel Perez's contract in favour of signing Sebastian Vettel. All of the loyalty that Checo had displayed for this team, having driven for them for 7 years, it all went down the drain and it just was not considered whatsoever. I made an entire video in English and Spanish about how I felt about the Perez situation and the loyalty of Racing Point. So I'll link that up there and down there if you want to go check that out. But now I'm going to talk about a final team, the third and final team that I'm going to talk about in this video. And I'm going to bring up Renault, who are very, very loyal to one person in particular. And that person is Fernando Alonso. Renault are so incredibly loyal to this one man that they are even jeopardizing their juniors in Guan Yu Zhou, Christian Lundgaard, and now Oscar Piastri, who are all in Formula 2, and now they potentially won't have a seat when they are ready to graduate to Formula 1. For many, many years now, Renault have not even had a consistent driver lineup, so they've had Julian Palmer, and then they had Nico Hülkenberg, Carlos Sainz, Daniel Ricciardo, Esteban Ocon, and we have not had a lineup that has stayed the same since maybe 2016, 2015? Renault just can't seem to stick by any single driver unless his name ends in so. As we can see, loyalty is most definitely a double-edged sword, and there are always advantages and always disadvantages. Let's talk about some drivers though, and I want to talk about our two most successful drivers on the Formula 1 grid. I want to talk about Lewis Hamilton and Sebastian Vettel. Lewis was extremely loyal to McLaren. They helped fund a lot of his junior career, and he stuck with them even when they were unable to provide championship winning cars in the late noughties and early 2010s. For him to break those ties and move to Mercedes was a massive deal. But if he hadn't have done that, he wouldn't have been nearly as successful as he is now. So it was definitely a good thing to sever those ties, but it could have backfired, for example, in a situation like it has with Sebastian Vettel. As a Red Bull junior, he was loyal to Red Bull and then leaving them for Ferrari. Yes, it's true he was able to challenge for championships, but his time at Ferrari has not necessarily ended in the most positive way, and it's because they severed their ties with Sebastian Vettel. What we can see through this example with Sebastian and Lewis is that you have to have two parties who are loyal to each other in order for this loyalty to work in Formula 1. However, you will never ever get a driver who is loyal to one team only, and you'll never ever get a team who is loyal to one driver only. You only have to look at Lewis Hamilton right now, who hasn't signed his contract yet. Mercedes is not loyal to Lewis Hamilton because they're not giving him everything that he wants, and they are saying, look, we've got George Russell ready to come up, you can't have everything that you want now. And Lewis is saying, give me what I want. Regardless of loyalty, the only way you seem to be successful in Formula 1 nowadays is by sticking with one particular team. Michael Schumacher won 5 of his 7 championships with Ferrari. Sebastian Vettel won his 4 championships with Red Bull. Senna won his 3 championships with McLaren. Lewis Hamilton has currently won 6 of his 7 World Championships with Mercedes. And so we can see that sticking with one team actually does produce the best results. A noticeable exception to this rule is Juan Manuel Fangio, who won his 5 championships with 4 different constructors, which would be absolutely unheard of nowadays. It just wouldn't happen. So maybe being loyal is the only way that you're going to have a successful run at several championships. Maybe Max Verstappen being loyal to Red Bull is the only way that he is ever going to succeed. Regardless, I think loyalty is a very dangerous concept, and I think people need to be aware that everyone in this sport is in it for themselves. The teams, at the end of the day, they only want the best drivers who are going to get them the best results. The drivers, they want to drive for the best team so that they can get themselves the best results. And as much as we want to call it a team sport, really it's every man for himself. And so when this loyalty doesn't benefit both parties, one of them is bound to stray, like what happened with Racing Point and Sergio Perez. This is really interesting to me, so I would love to hear your thoughts on loyalty in Formula 1 down below, whether you think it's a good thing, a bad thing. I don't think loyalty is going anywhere, and we are constantly going to see specific drivers and specific teams be loyal to each other, and that's the way Formula 1's going to be. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, don't forget to leave it a like down below. Subscribe if you've not already. We're on the road to 1K. So thank you for all of your support, and I will see you guys in the next one.